Okay. When you were gone, we had our very first. We tried to have our very first chat with our newest client, Mike Kazarian, who's been a friend of mine for years.
Right.
And the audio was awful, and something happened. And before I officially introduce Mike Kazarian, let me just see if it's all working. Hey, Kaz, is it all working?
It sounds pretty good to me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I just mentioned that you and I were texting last night during the football game about those sucks wearing short sleeves. Kaz is like, yeah, we'd be out there golfing in short sleeves. I'm like,
We used to play out in the snow at Rattlesnake back in the day.
yeah. Bad. Well, listen, in the time I've lived in Toronto, I've definitely golfed once or twice where in the round it snowed. I'm sure you have.
I have. We actually had heaters in the golf cart. The carts were covered. We had hot dogs, and we were actually had TVs, and we were watching the football game in the cart while we played golf. It doesn't get any better.
Oh, it's perfect. Okay, well, now the audio seems to be working, so let's actually physically get your actual intro music. Here we go. We picked this out. We like this. It's got a nice vibe to it. Please welcome to our program. The first of which we hope is going to be many discussions with our newest sponsor from Lender's Choice Mortgages, Mike Kazarian. And I have to read this, Fred. Mike is one of the broker owners of Lender's Choice, an independently owned and operated member of Mortgage Alliance, license number 13582. You know, we've talked quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, Mike and I, about how different the model of Lender's Choice is. But before we get to what you do, let's talk a little bit about what you think of the world that's coming in 2024 as far as mortgages coming due for people.
Well, that's a great question. First of all, nobody has a crystal ball what's going to happen with mortgage rates, but we can get to that in a second. But in 2024, it's predicted that there's about 1 million mortgages maturing, and in 2025, around the same. So 2 million mortgages in Canada maturing in the next 2 years. And, people are going to go from lower interest rates, and they're going to be renewing at much higher interest rates.
Yeah, which is a scary prospect for some people. I heard on the news yesterday that the economic outlook doesn't look that bad, and that maybe in the first half of 2024 interest rates will start to come down. But that's going to be a long process, isn't it, Mike? People, they're not instantly going to go back to 1% and 2%. It's going to take a while to get back there. So even if they start to recede a bit, it's still going to be a while.
Well, for sure. And it's going to be painful because people that had mortgages, in 2020, 2021, 2022 that are going to be maturing over the next 2 years. Again, their interest rates are probably in the 2 to 3.5% range. And now we're looking rates are in the 5.5% range, 6%. So their payments are going to go, I did some number crunching, and on $100,000 mortgage, amortized over 30 years at 5.5%, if interest rates go down 1%, that's going to be $88 difference on 100,000. Well, if the average mortgage is like 500,000 or 600,000, you're looking at it over $500 a month. It's considerable. It's a lot of money.
Sure, it is for a lot of people.
So you talk about mortgages coming due and in this year and the next. So there's going to be a lot of people listening that might think, okay, normally what I do when my mortgage comes due is I go to my bank, lets me know, and I deal with my bank. And you've been in the business a long time. Before you started Lender's Mortgage, you worked for big banks. So how does a mortgage broker experience, which I think is key, how does it differ than dealing with a bank?
When you go to your own financial institution, you've got one product and one rate. So, you go to renew your mortgage with your financial institution, they're going to offer you, here's the rate. And you deal with somebody like me at a mortgage broker. We deal with over 75 different lenders with no preference to any one. So we're going to take you to the lender that makes the most sense for you. And again, like having worked at the financial institutions, like I know like there are certain guidelines and things that, maybe you're not going to qualify, or maybe you need to refinance your mortgage. So there's a lot of things to consider, but dealing with a mortgage broker, having access, one-stop shop to find you the solution that works for you, I think is critical for many people.
And just as a follow-up, though, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's like, it would make sense if there's 75 options versus one. Chances are you can get a better rate. But what do you say to somebody when they say, "Can you get me a better rate?"
Well, I'm going to say it's not always about the rate. Number one, like we need to understand what your goals are, because if your payments are impacting your cash flow situation, maybe we need to refinance. Maybe we need to increase your amortization. Obviously not optimal to pay your mortgage off longer, but if the payments are, your lifestyle, then we may need to refinance. So I'm going to say, Howard, it's not always about the rate, but
Okay.
Again, because we have access to over 75 different lenders, we're going to find you the best rate and the best solution for you.
And you hit on it there a second ago. Like 1 point, if you find somebody like 1 point, if you can do that, $500 a month in that scenario that you talked about, that's $6,000 a year over 5 years. That's 34. Like, I mean, just do the math. It's significant, and obviously why people should look beyond their bank, because there's better deals out there, obviously.
100%, right? But I think it comes down to advice and, doing what's best for the customer. Because if you're just renewing at your financial institution, of course they want to keep you as a client. For me, yes, I want your business, but I'm going to send you to the financial institution that makes sense for you. So it doesn't matter who I go to. It's whatever works for you. So understanding what your goals are is critical. And giving that piece of advice, I think, is so important, more now than ever, because interest rates are impacting, people's cash flow. Like, look, everything's gone up. Like inflation's hurt us all, right? So, your mortgage payment is going to have a huge impact on your lifestyle.
Well, I think that's where we'll close it off for today, because I think for the next time, and for a lot of people listening, it might be the first time they've ever considered breaking away from their bank and going to a mortgage broker. And next time, maybe we'll talk about what that process is like, and not because we've spoken about some of the benefits, but I think for a lot of people, they might just be reticent because, like when we talk to Tim Niblett all the time, not everyone wants to talk about this kind of things. It makes them uncomfortable. But maybe breaking away from your bank when your mortgage comes due this year might be the year to talk to somebody like Mr. Kazarian. And by the way, Fred, when we're golfing, he occasionally will make me call him Mr. Kazarian, which I find.
And so you should.
That's right. It's like, hey, he'll say, okay, for the next 9 holes, please call me Mr. Kazarian. And I say, okay.
And I got nothing to say there, Howard. I don't know. You got me. But
yeah, he doesn't want to get caught up in your fantasy world, Howard.
Exactly. Yeah. The funny thing is, he does. Lenderschoice.ca is where you get a hold of Mike Kazarian. Lenderschoice.ca. And again, if you would like to support this program, we'd like you to support our clients, and Mr. Kazarian is one of them now. And we would appreciate you if you do have a mortgage coming due. At the very least, why not have a conversation? At least, if you're not ready to do it, at least have a conversation with Mike. Advice is free, and at least let Mike have I'm sure you would do that. Let Mike have a look at what your situation is and see if it's the best idea for you, right?
I think getting a second opinion is always, making an educated decision is so important. So, I'm happy to give whatever advice I can provide. And and to your point, Howard, it's free.
All right, man. Lenderschoice.ca. Great to have you on board. Glad this all worked out. I'll check in with you later. And thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Good to meet you.
You guys have a great day. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye. You too, Fred. Take care.
Yeah, man. I think for a lot of people, they're just reticent. They might be bye, Mike. Now we're going to talk about you. Well, we'll just talk about you. That's what we do after people leave. I think I think a lot of people are just reticent to make a change. But I think now more than ever, as you point out, just shaving a point off your mortgage can be a huge savings for a family over the course of the life of your amortization, you know?
Yeah, and I was thinking about that yesterday as I mentioned. They're saying that maybe this year, in the first half, actually, that interest rates could maybe be cut. But again, we went from there's people with like 1.5, 1 3/4 percentage mortgage. Those went. Now it's like, as he mentioned, 5 or something. Even if they start to recede, we're only talking like a quarter point at a time every couple of months or every few months, right? So.
Yep.
The impact is going to be there for the next few years. They're not instantly going to return to where they were. They can't, obviously.
Well, and, again, part of the problem with human beings is we forget, as I mentioned yesterday, we all think we're living in the worst times ever. I don't know how many times we've told this story in the last couple of years about our first mortgages. My first mortgage in 1992 was close to 13%. I remember when I bought that place in Mississauga, which you apparently thought was too much house for me. It turned out to be true. But because I was so excited showing you my new house, and you're like, yeah, this is great, Howard, but there's no way you can take care of this.
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't necessarily the size. It was the
upkeep.
What it involved, including an indoor pool.
Yeah, that was an old Humble and Fred money. But anyway, that mortgage was 11%. I remember going from 13 to 11 thinking, wow, isn't this great? And so, yeah, our mortgage rates in the last few years have just gone way up from these historic lows. And the thing is, we had those historic lows for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Money was cheap around here, around these parts for many years.
I remember, again, talking to the bank, talking to my financial, the people I get advice from, and it was like, use your line of credit, man. It costs nothing. Use their money. It's virtually costs nothing. Use it. Well, that's changed, and I can attest to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was inevitable that it was going to get more expensive.
Right.
Because a lot of these things, whether it's inflation or bank rates, the economy is cyclical.